I want you to imagine a man, let's call him John. John is intelligent, he works hard, harder than most. He reads the right books, listens to the right podcasts. Every year, he tells himself, this is the year I break through. One year he gets a promotion, his income jumps to $55,000. Like, he feels a brief moment of elation, but then a series of unlucky events occurs. His car breaks down with an unexpected, costly repair. A medical bill arrives higher than anticipated. By the end of the year, after all the dust is settled, he is financially right back where he started. When the next year he tries the side hustle. He works nights and weekends, burning himself out. He makes an extra $7,000. He feels he has finally done it. But then a bad investment based on a hot tip from a friend wipes out his gains. He ends the year once again hovering around the same financial mark. John looks at his life and sees a string of bad luck. He sees a conspiracy of external circumstances that seem designed to keep him stuck. He is wrong. John is not a victim of bad luck. He is the victim of a perfectly functioning hidden mechanism, a mechanism that is working flawlessly to keep him exactly where he believes he belongs. Inside the walls of John's mind, unseen and unfelt, there is a thermostat. And that thermostat has been set by years of subtle programming to exactly $50,000. If his income drops below that, the thermostat kicks in and he is filled with a desperate, panicked energy to work harder and get back to his normal level. If his income rises above it, the thermostat kicks in again, triggering a subconscious impulse to spend, to make a foolish mistake, to sabotage, to do whatever it takes to bring the temperature back down to its comfortable, familiar setting. John's prison is not the economy. It is not his boss. It is not his bad luck. His prison is a single number set on a thermostat hidden in the basement of his own mind. This is not just John's story. This is the story of millions. And today, we are not just going to find that thermostat. We are going to break it. We are going to rip it off the wall and expose the fundamental law that installed it there in the first place, the law of mental equivalence. The mechanism that controls John's thermostat is governed by one of the most profound and unforgiving laws of the mind. It is called the law of mental equivalence. The law states this: to bring anything into your life, be it a dollar, a relationship, or an opportunity, you must first create its equivalent in your own consciousness. The outer world is a mirror. It cannot reflect to you what I do not first hold up to it from within. To expect $1 million reality when you hold a $50,000 consciousness is the definition of insanity. It is like tuning your radio to 98.7 FM and expecting to hear the broadcast from 105.1 FM. The radio is not broken. You are simply tuned to the wrong frequency. Your mental equivalent is the sum total of your dominant beliefs, assumptions, feelings, and most importantly, your self-concept. It is the deep gut-level conviction of who you are and what you deserve. If you secretly believe you are a $50,000 person, then the universe, in its infinite and impartial wisdom, will conspire to give you exactly that. If a windfall comes, it will orchestrate an emergency to bring you back to your baseline. If an opportunity for massive growth appears, it will cloud your judgment with fear and doubt so that you let it pass. The universe is not punishing you, it is merely agreeing with you. It is honoring the blueprint you have handed it. This is why working harder often fails, and working harder is an external action. If you are a $50,000 consciousness working with the frantic energy of a millionaire, you are simply a more exhausted $50,000 consciousness. You are polishing the outside of a building whose foundations are set to a lower level. The real work, the only work, is to change the blueprint. It is to build a new mental equivalent. But before you can build a new one, you must first diagnose the old one. You must have the courage to go down into the basement of your mind and read the current setting on your thermostat. How do you find a thermostat that is, by its nature, invisible? You do not look for the thermostat itself. You look at the temperature of the room. You look at the results in your life. But we can be more precise. Let me tell you the story of a man I once advised, a consultant we shall call David. David was brilliant, but his income had been stuck at around $80,000 for 5 years. He came to me frustrated. I asked him to perform a simple diagnostic exercise for 1 week. I now ask you to do the same. I told him, David, for the next 7 days, I want you to become a detective of your own mind. Carry a small notebook, and every time you think about money or value or your career, I want you to write down the first feeling and the first thought that appears without judgment. David reluctantly agreed, and what the results were revealing. When a friend mentioned buying a luxury car, David's first thought was not, I can have that too, but that must be nice for them. He had written in his notebook, feeling, separation, thought, wealth is for other people. When he was about to send an invoice for his services, he felt a pang of anxiety. He wrote, feeling guilt. Thought, am I really worth this much? Maybe I should offer a discount. When he saw a job posting for a high-level executive role at $250,000, and he didn't feel aspiration. He felt a quiet scoff. He wrote, feeling intimidation. Thought, I could never handle that level of responsibility. At the end of the week, David looked at his notebook. It was a perfect blueprint of an $80,000 consciousness. His thermostat was not set by his skills, but by his feelings of separation, guilt, and intimidation. He saw in his own handwriting the invisible laws that were governing his life. He had found his thermostat. This is your task. Become the detective. For the next few days, observe your spontaneous reactions to wealth, success, and value. What do you feel when you see a price tag on an expensive suit? What is your first thought when a colleague gets a massive bonus? Do not judge what you find. Simply observe. You cannot change a setting you cannot see. This exercise is how you turn on the light in the basement of your mind. At the end of the week, David looked at his notebook. It was a perfect blueprint of an $80,000 consciousness. His thermostat was not set by his skills, but by his feelings of separation, guilt, and intimidation. He saw in his own handwriting the invisible laws that were governing his life. He had found his thermostat. This is your task. Become the detective. For the next few days, observe your spontaneous reactions to wealth, success, and value. What do you feel when you see a price tag on an expensive suit? What is your first thought when a colleague gets a massive bonus? Do not judge what you find. Simply observe. You cannot change a setting you cannot see. This exercise is how you turn on the light in the basement of your mind. The evidence you gather from your diagnostic will point to a single foundational lie. A lie so pervasive and so deeply embedded in our culture that we accept it as truth without question. It is the lie of external value. This is the belief that your worth is a number assigned to you by an external entity. Your boss, your clients, the job market, a university degree. We are taught from birth that these external sources have the authority to look at us and declare, you are worth this much. We then internalize this number. We take the price tag the world hangs on our neck and we sew it onto our soul. We become a $50,000 a year person in our own minds, because that is the verdict the world has passed upon us. This is the most insidious form of slavery ever invented. It is a prison of the mind where the inmate willingly accepts the judgment of the warden. Let me tell you a story. Imagine a magnificent lion, the king of the jungle, captured as a cub and raised in a small cage at a circus, and every day his trainer comes and gives him a small bowl of meat, just enough to survive. The lion grows, his muscles ache for the savannah, his roar longs for the open plains, but his entire reality is the cage and the daily bowl of meat. To him, the value of his existence, the sum total of what he deserves, is that single bowl of meat. The trainer is the external authority who determines his worth. One day, a storm rips the door of his cage from its hinges. The lion tentatively steps out. He is, for the first time in the wider world, he is terrified. He doesn't know how to hunt. His value is still, in his own mind, one bowl of meat. He might even return to the cage where at least his worth was known and guaranteed. This lion is every man and woman who accepts their salary as the final measure of their worth. Your job is not your source. It is merely one channel through which the divine substance currently flows. To mistake the channel for the source is the same as the lion mistaking the trainer's hand for the source of all food. The source is the entire jungle, teeming with life and abundance, waiting for him to claim his true nature. The law of mental equivalence reveals that the world does not tell you what you are worth. It listens to what you declare your worth to be, and then it reflects that declaration back to you in the form of a salary, a client fee, or a business profit. The world is a mirror, not a judge. To break free, you must perform the most radical act of rebellion imaginable. You must fire the judge. You must revoke the world's authority to price your soul. You must turn your gaze away from the external price tag and begin the internal work of discovering your true inherent value. If your value is not external, then where does it come from? The great truth, the secret held by mystics and masters for millennia, is that your value is not earned, created, or assigned. It is inherent. It is intrinsic to your very existence. Your true value is infinite because you are not merely a human being. You are a unique, individualized expression of the one divine mind. You are God in manifestation. To say I am unworthy is a form of blasphemy against your own creator. It is the lion standing free in the jungle, insisting that he is only worth one bowl of meat. Knowing this intellectually is not enough. You must forge this truth into your being. You must build a new mental equivalent, not of a man who earns $250,000, but of a man who is innately worthy of the abundance that a $250,000 income represents. This is the work of forging a new man. Let me tell you of another man I knew, an artist. He was a painter of breathtaking talent, but he lived in poverty, selling his masterpieces for pennies at local fairs. His thermostat was set to starving artists. He believed deep down that true art and poverty were noble companions. I instructed him in this truth of inherent value. His practical work was not to paint more or to find a better agent. His work was to change himself. Every morning before touching a brush, he would stand before a mirror. He was not to look at his tired eyes or his worn clothes. He was to look through them into the divine spark within. And he would say aloud, I am not a painter, I am a channel for divine beauty. The work I do is priceless, for it is the work of God expressing itself. I am worthy of infinite compensation because my source is infinite. At first he felt like a fool. The words were hollow. but he persisted. Day after day, he performed this ritual of forging his new identity. Slowly, something shifted. He began to carry himself differently. A quiet authority entered his voice, and when a potential buyer at a fair tried to haggle him down for the first time in his life, he did not feel fear. He felt a calm sense of his own worth. He smiled and said, the price is the price. It is a fair reflection of the life that went into this piece. The buyer, taken aback by this new energy, paid the full price without another word. This was the first crack in the dam. Soon he was discovered by a gallery owner who was coincidentally visiting the small town. His career exploded. He did not become worthy when the gallery owner found him. The gallery owner found him because he had finally accepted his own worth. He had built the mental equivalent of a world-renowned artist. And the world rushed to make it so. And this is your task. You must forge your new self-concept in the fires of repetition and feeling. The mirror work, the affirmations, these are not acts of ego. They are the tools of the master craftsman, shaping the consciousness that will, in turn, shape your world. You have diagnosed your current setting. You have rejected the lie of external value and embraced the truth of your inherent divine worth. Now comes the most crucial work, the practical, deliberate act of recalibrating your mental thermostat. This is not a mystical art. It is a science of the mind, requiring precision, discipline, and repetition. Here are 3 core disciplines for forging your new mental equivalent. Discipline 1, the incantation of identity. An affirmation repeated without feeling is a dead letter. An incantation spoken with the fire of conviction is a world-building force. You must craft a statement of identity that declares your new reality. It should not be, I want to be, or I will be. It must be, I am. For the artist, it was, I am a channel for divine beauty. For you, it might be, I am the consciousness of $1 million enterprise. I am so valuable that money and opportunity are constantly drawn to me. I am the living embodiment of unlimited abundance and success. Just choose one. Write it down. And do not just say it, declare it. Speak it aloud in the morning with the authority of a king issuing a decree. Whisper it to yourself before a difficult meeting. Let it be the last thought that vibrates in your mind as you fall asleep. This is not about convincing yourself. It is about issuing a new command to the divine substance that you are. Discipline 2, the revision of evidence. Your past experiences of lack and limitation are the anchors that hold your old thermostat setting in place. You must sever these anchors. As we have discussed before, the tool for this is revision. At the end of each day, take one memory, a moment where you felt undervalued, where you accepted a no, where you flinched at a price, and rewrite it. In your imagination, see yourself acting from your new state of consciousness. See yourself calmly stating your worth. See yourself receiving the yes. Feel the quiet confidence of a person whose value is not in question. By revising the past, you are not erasing history. You are withdrawing your energetic investment from the evidence of lack and reinvesting it in the evidence of your new chosen reality. You are cleaning the old data from your subconscious computer. Discipline 3, acting as if, the rehearsal for reality. You cannot wait for your bank account to show $1 million. Before you start feeling and acting like a person of immense value, you must act as if. This is not about being fake or spending money you don't have. It is about embodying the character of your future self. How would a person of immense worth walk? How would they speak? How would they treat others? Would they Would they be frantic and needy or calm and generous? Would they complain about small problems, or would their mind be focused on grand visions? Of start embodying these qualities now. Dress just a little better, tip a little more generously, feeling the flow of abundance, and speak with more deliberation and less haste. When you perform these small actions, you are not faking it, you are rehearsing, you are sending a powerful signal to your subconscious mind that the change is real, that the new identity has taken hold. You are the actor, becoming the king by rehearsing the part with absolute conviction. Let me tell you one final story, a story I witnessed unfold, which proves that no thermostat is set so low that it cannot be shattered. There was a man named Arthur who worked as a janitor in a large corporate building. He was kind, honest, and invisible. His thermostat was set to minimum wage. He saw the executives in their fine suits, and they were like beings from another planet. One day he found one of our books left behind in an office. He began to read. He learned of the law of mental equivalence. A tiny spark ignited within him. He decided to conduct the experiment. He could not act as if by buying a new suit, but he began to perform his duties not as a janitor, but as the guardian of that building. And he cleaned the boardroom table not as a chore, but as if he were preparing it for his own board of directors. He polished the brass on the front doors, feeling that he was polishing the entrance to his own empire. He was building the mental equivalent of ownership and pride. His incantation, whispered as he swept the floors, was, "I am the consciousness of order, excellence, and growth." His entire demeanor changed. The executives who had never noticed him began to see him. They saw not a janitor, but a man who radiated a strange and powerful dignity. One day, the CEO, a man named Mr. Harrison, struck up a conversation with him. He was shocked by the intelligence and insight in Arthur's observations about the building's operations. An opening appeared in the mailroom. Harrison, remembering the dignified janitor, offered him the job. It was a small step up, but Arthur had cracked his thermostat. He applied the same principles in the mailroom, seeing himself not as a clerk, but as the chief of corporate communications. He reorganized the entire system for efficiency. Promotions followed: mailroom supervisor, head of facilities, junior manager. Each step of the way, Arthur was not focused on the next job. He was focused on building the mental equivalent of the man who was already 2 steps ahead. Years later, Arthur was not a janitor. He was a senior executive in that same company, a trusted advisor to Mr. Harrison himself. He had not changed his core intelligence or his honesty. He had changed his self-concept. He had built the mental equivalent of a magnate while holding a broom, and the universe, which must obey the law, had no choice but to hand him the scepter. Arthur's story is not a fairy tale. It is a demonstration of the law. The thermostat in your mind, the setting that dictates the temperature of your financial life, is not made of steel. It is made of belief. And a belief can be changed. You have the diagnostic tools, you have the disciplines of forging, you have the stories of the lion, the artist, and the janitor. You have the blueprint. The world will continue to offer you its price tag. Your past will continue to whisper its evidence of limitation. The ego will continue to argue for what is realistic. Your task is to ignore them all. Your task is to turn your gaze inward and begin the great work. The work of building a new mental equivalent. The work of becoming, in the quiet workshop of your own mind, the person you desire to be. Do not ask how it will happen. Do not ask when it will happen. The how and the when are the domain of the master builder. Your only responsibility is to create the blueprint, clear and unwavering. What is the number on your thermostat today? $50,000, $80,000. It does not matter whether it is an old setting based on an old lie. Today you rip it from the wall and you declare with the full power of your divine nature your new setting, infinite. I am Charles Fillmore, and this is the Fillmore Key.